Thanks to everyone for attending. Thanks to my panelists here. I know this is the end of a long CMMC day. Hopefully everyone here has learned a lot and are better prepared to move forward with their CMMC journey. This should be a great session. So, Prevail is one of the leading platforms for securing CUI in the CMMC ecosystem. But getting from your platform and storing your CUI to actually completing the full set of services and preparing all your documentation and being ready for CMMC assessment requires the help of organizations that we have here. These are partners of Prevail. They're not only managed service provider partners, but they also have expertise as registered practitioner organizations, meaning they are, experts in CMMC. So experienced in IT services, experts in CMMC, that's a heck of a combination and very powerful for our customers. And it's no surprise that many of our customers are working with partners just like this as they move forward through their CMMC journey. So I'm Vince Petrecka, the Vice President of Sales and Partners at Prevail. Been at Prevail for about 7 years and very focused on this NIST CMMC space for about the last 5 years. Just going to go around the horn here for introductions. Stuart, why don't you kick us off?
Very good. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stuart Itkin, and I'm a Senior Vice President at Neosystems. Neosystems is a managed service provider focused on addressing the needs of government contractors, and we provide our clients an accelerated, affordable, low-risk path to CMMC compliance readiness. Much of my career has been involved in supply chain risk management and compliance. Prior to my role at Neosystems, I was Vice President of CMMC and FedRAMP Assurance at Coal-Fire Federal, and prior to that, Vice President of Product Management and Marketing at Exostar. I was a member of the original CMMC accreditation body Standards Working Group and currently serve as a director of MSPs for the Protection of Critical Infrastructure, which is a 501c6 dedicated to the national security mission of maintaining a secure, functioning, and resilient infrastructure, and also serve as director of the CMMC Industry Standards Council.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. Stuart, Jeremy, you want to go next?
Sure, no problem. Hey, everybody, I'm Jeremy Conway, CEO for MAD Security. We specialize in cybersecurity services, specifically tailored for the defense interface and public sector and state and local governments. We've been doing it well over 15 years. What we've had a beauty of doing is merging compliance with operations in a managed services thing. My background, doing cybersecurity well over 25 years. Probably what most folks know me from is way early in the 2000s. We built the NASA Security Operations Center back when none of this technology existed. So got a lot of bumps and bruises and things that we learned through that. And doing so, we've operationalized that into knuckling down and doing it for our folks, defense-based public sector. So all the NIST standards, CMMC, DFARS, things like that. I have an entire compliance department, SOC operations merged together, and we love our partnership with Prevail and enablement of defense interface. So looking forward to this session.
Very good. Thanks. Thanks a lot, Jeremy. Peter, you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Vince. Pete Morin. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer with Synergex. Synergex is a managed service provider located in Western Massachusetts. We service clients from small to mid-size organizations supporting their IT needs, so across the board from an IT solution. Over the last 5 years have been more focused in providing, we're also an RPO and providing guidance and gap assessment work for those potentially needing CMMC compliance. So focusing more and shifting toward that defense industrial base client. My background, I've been in IT crazy almost 30 years now, and focused on compliance in many of that time in the career, cybersecurity compliance, banking compliance, healthcare compliance, and more recently in the last 5 to 10 years with the defense industrial base.
Very good. Thanks, Peter. Todd, you want to wrap up the intros?
I do, and thank you very much for the opportunity, Vince, to be part of this extraordinary community. Hi, everybody. I'm Todd Hines, and I run our governance, risk, and compliance practice at Heartland Business Systems. Heartland is infrastructure managed services. We have a SOC and do a variety of other things towards business transformation. We are an RPO, as Vince mentioned, and my practice provides, the CMMC consultants and CISOs to help organizations on their CMMC journey, and not just the journey, but to get across the goal line.
Great. I'm honored to be with the experience and expertise that we have lined up here on this call. So let's go ahead and get rolling. In keeping with one of the highlights of today's sessions, which was that the CMMC ruling is now final. CMMC is happening, and the rules are all final. And some of those are a bit or slightly changed from what they were in the preliminary versions just around a year ago. So there is a key change in the latest final ruling regarding MSPs, namely that MSPs are not required to be CMMC Level 2 certified themselves, but can instead insert that they meet specific NIST controls associated with the service offerings. Based on the latest information in the final ruling, does your organization, do you have an opinion yet on whether you anticipate moving forward with full or partial support of CMMC Level 2 controls, and why? And I'll first turn to Stuart. Go ahead and kick us off on that, Stuart.
So I think the direct answer first to your question is absolutely. Yeah, we have every intent of going through a CMMC certification at Level 2 and doing it at the earliest time that is available to us. I think, it was unfortunate that this change occurred between the proposed rule and the final rule. We know that there are a lot of very capable service organizations out there that are supporting members of the DIB, but we've also seen organizations that have come in stating that they can provide services to enable someone to satisfy the NIST 800-171 control set, and not all of them are qualified. I met with a C3PAO not too long ago who talked about doing a JSVA with a client using a commercial MSP. Going through the JSVA, they certainly expected that they were going to pass the JSVA. The C3PAO scored them at a -155. It was more that the MSP they were working for just didn't understand the assessment criteria, didn't understand NIST 800-171. So for us, we feel it's absolutely essential. It's more than eating our own dog food. It's certainly being able to demonstrate to those that we serve that we understand the requirements that they need to satisfy, and that we're capable of enabling them to do that.
Yeah. Thanks. Certainly appreciate that position. Let's hear maybe from a couple others, though. Pete, interested in Synergex and how you're approaching this.
Sure. So I would copy a lot of the same, reiterate that, but based on the clientele that we're working with, their needs, we want to do the same, show that we're implementing the same security stack, the same features. We're often recommending the same set of policies and standards, working with them to write those and implement those processes. So definitely interested in continuing our journey on becoming CMMC compliant and exploring. We're an RPO now, but also exploring what might that look like if we become a C3PAO in the future. Is the business going to sustain the consultation side of those clients that are out there still needing just that consulting side and may need additional services? So exploring those options as well.
Yeah, absolutely. No, sounds good. Just real quickly, let's maybe check with the other gentlemen as well. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Sure. I actually appreciate the flexibility that is applied with that, right? And why I say that is as many bad folks are out there, there are good folks. What's really interesting to me is walk around our company, our mantra is, our charter is to build the best defensive-based security operations center in the world, right? So we've already said we're going to achieve level 2. We've already gone through those things, right? We're out to set to do level 3. So our clients ensure us to trust we're going to do it. And now we have an opportunity. We can get a C3PO online. We can get our plan is Q1. Let's get this done, right? Let's get it that way so that we can streamline our compliance and stuff. But I don't so much think that every MSP or such need to be at that level, because there are some small folks that use solutions like Prevail and some other things where it's an enclaved out and stuff, and having that flexibility with the right compliance consultation and things like that, it gives some room for some things. It creates some competition. But I would say anybody that's seriously about doing business with the defense industry base are already aligned with the NIST framework, the NIST standards. We've been there for 15 years. This isn't new. So It should be easy, right? It's mostly folks that are broaching the area or an MSP that was kind of dabbling in both areas. And I think it'll improve them, right? Once they go through a couple audits, and we've gone through them, we've seen those MSPs, and they see the artifacts that they have to deliver and the complications of not having the certification. I just feel like now that we walk in with a lot of C3POs and we walk in and we've been through those GSVAs, there's, they can't say that there's an easier path, but because of us seeing the same friendly faces, those types of things, they know what they're going to get. We know what package to provide. We know what artifacts they are. So I like the flexibility. Personally, our company's going to be L2. We're looking to go, to meet the controls of L3 because that's what we are, Security Operations Center.
Yeah. Excellent. Agreed. I agree on the flexibility piece. To me, it's an opportunity across that MSP space for differentiation, right? If you step up and do that, I think you can use that to your advantage. Todd, do you want to have the last word on this one?
Just ditto. We are going to be doing it, and mostly for a trust factor, right? Having our customers believe that we're in it. Stuart said, eat our own dog food. We've been there. And so it is a competitive advantage, especially maybe as more stories come out with groups that try to get to the goal line with maybe not the right answers. And it becomes maybe a little bit more something that organizations will be looking for in MSPs because of some of those stories that may come out. Maybe they won't, but we're definitely going to be one of the ones that are standing in line to get that certification.
Yeah, Vince, if I can just add, one other thought on this, though. I think that if you look at MSPs, you appreciate that they represent a greater risk than an individual OSC or an individual DIB company. If something were to happen to a major MSP, hundreds of DIB companies are affected, not a single DIB company. And the responsibility that we all have as MSPs is more than just the confidentiality of information, which is addressed by 800-171. But we're certainly dependent on for the integrity of the information that we handle on behalf of our clients, and certainly with respect to the availability of that information. So I do think that it's important that MSPs in general are held to a standard. Again, I was disappointed that was removed from the rule, but certainly those that are looking for an MSP, should really understand the qualifications of the MSP and the potential risk they represent.
Yeah. No, completely understand. Of course, Prevail is a cloud service provider. We know how important it is to meet these criteria as a FedRAMP, equivalent provider ourselves, and meeting all 325 controls that are required. With that, took us several years to accomplish, and as part of that, we've really built on top of our AWS infrastructure in our encryption security model, just a very, very secure scenario for our customers we can feel confident about. Okay, let's skip to maybe another topic here for a few minutes. So organizations seeking compliance, OSCs, we're finding that many of the smaller players in the space really would prefer not to handle some of the specifics around configuring, deploying, managing endpoints and SIMSOC and those type of capabilities that are really very important, in addition to the capabilities that Prevail provides in a CMMC compliant solution. What kind of options do each of you offer to assist OSCs in this service area? And in addition to helping with the services themselves, will you help them with the support of the documentation that they'll need to go with that to reach CMMC compliance? Jeremy, do you want to kick us off on that one?
Yeah, I think any serious MSSP that specializes in defense industry base has to check all those boxes that you just said there, right? Or that's pay to play stuff, right? That's like literally you can't be a serious MSSP unless you're doing all those things. What kind of offerings are we doing there? Like we look at it from soup to nuts, right? The very first thing we need to do is basically have an enablement discussion, understand what they're trying to do and what their business model is and what their risks are and that type of stuff, to then prescribe an enclave, a full environment of some kind of thing, maybe a Prevail solution, like just depending on what it is, right? That kind of thing. Then go into a gap assessment, get out those controls, understand where they are, work them off, and implement, continuous monitoring through security operations, continuous virtual compliance management. Like there's a bunch of boxes that are going there. So it's natural for us to just say we help them with all those things. The other thing that we do is any defense based security operations center or managed service provider, they need to be agnostic, right? And the reason for that is it's a cost-conscious group of folks, right? When this stuff came out, why weren't they doing DFARS? Well, because it costs, right? And they came to margins. What was all the comments in the things? Hey, it costs too much. How are they going to do this stuff? So you got to be agnostic a little bit in that you can't just give them your solution and only do that kind of thing. You also have to be able to like integrate things in a security operations center. Like if they have a different endpoint protection or they have those types of things, you have to be across the board. Like we work in GC High, we work in Prevail, we work Sentinel-1, we work with Defend, we work with all these different things. You got to figure that out, right? And you gotta bring it together, and you got to be there at every step of the journey, to include the mock audit, to include sitting in the room with the auditors when it happens, right? We have the customers that's what we do. So hopefully I answered that question for you, Vince.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, clearly it's a key area in support of the goal of CMMC compliance. I think sometimes it's underestimated by folks as they start the journey. And to me, it's very valuable that we have partners that have many different solutions, as you mentioned, to the puzzle, right? There isn't one size fits all. There's many different ways you can address this and still achieve full compliance. And it's experts like each of you that can help them get there. Todd, do you want to provide some insights from the Heartland side of point of view?
Jeremy hit a lot of the spots. Yeah, I agree. We do have to have all those check boxes for the most part to be effective in it. Our company, for example, we've got over 500 engineers, and it's not just having the checkbox in areas. We have managed services, managed SOC, etc. But they specialize in lots of different stacks. Because with as many customers as we serve, we don't come across the same starting point a lot, either by industry or by technical stacks. And so having that diversity, not only with all the checkboxes that we can provide as an MSP, but that visualization or that sight of seeing how it's been implemented across different stacks, different size customers, different industries, etc. I think, gives us that softer or unspoken kind of advantage in helping an organization. And Prevail is, definitely one of the products that we, put in for groups that need some fairly fast and very effective compliance. So that's what I would say real fast.
No, appreciate that. Pete, maybe you could take it a little bit from the angle of, what if you're talking to someone who's thinking they're going to do this alone, they're going to do this on their own? What might be some of the advice you'd give them? What would you be bringing to the table for someone, and how could you make their life easier versus going it alone?
Yeah, and I think that comes back to a lot of what Jeremy was saying, that many of these things are just what a good MSP would provide. The stack is similar to what it's not the stack of what used to be. We slap in a firewall and we call it a day, or we have some email protection, basic endpoint protection. That stack is becoming so much more complex now, but is becoming the norm. In the next, it's probably already here. For years, I've been saying in the next 4 to 5 years, this is going to be the stack. It doesn't matter whether we're in the defense space or healthcare. That set of tools that an MSP is putting in place, that security stack, in any of those environments should be what those companies are looking for. So it's complicated for a small organization to put those in place, or expensive, that we have that ability that we're at scale, we're able to buy these and implement these tools that are quite complex at times, at a cost point that a small organization can afford. The investing in what it would take for IT support. So is it one full-time employee for your organization or multiple? Now it's, I can go to an MSP that does have this experience, and I suggest going out, doing the research on the MSP you're going to work with, go out to, I don't like the cyber AB, see what their credentials are, talk to them, ask them questions. If you're doing some research on CMMC, ask the right questions, feel confident that they, like we talked about earlier with being CMMC 2.0 certified, that, hey, are they working at that? And then see that, okay, this will save me the cost of potentially multiple full-time employees. And I'd have these services from that person at the end on the phone when I need them, all the way up to steering and just that C-level kind of level as well, that will help with planning in your organization.
Yep. Yep. Stuart, for someone that you're talking to that, thinks they can do or wants to do this more on their own, it's not just the implementation of this, the operationalizing of it, but the documenting it, documenting of all of these processes, making sure that they're put into the context of the CMMC program from that perspective. So what would be some of the advice you'd give in this sort of situation?
Well, it's similar to, what the other panelists have said. You look at the reason why companies come to us, especially small and medium businesses. They have the expertise to do what they do. I talked with a company yesterday that manufactures glass for cockpit instruments in fighter jets. I have no idea how to do that. They have no idea how to do cybersecurity or satisfy the requirements of NIST 800-171. That's why they do come to us. And certainly there are a lot of technical controls that are served or satisfied by the IT stack and the security products that we put in place. But there are a lot of non-technical controls that need to be satisfied by policies and procedures that not only need to be implemented, but need to be followed. And so, very much, and I'm sure it's a part of everybody's offering, is to be able to provide documentation support, to be able to provide support in the creation of those policies and those procedures. Our approach, and again, this is trying to focus on keeping the cost down, the time that it requires down, that we'll generally start and bring a set of policies and procedures that have been vetted to comply with those non-technical requirements. And where we can, we find that it's lower risk and faster to teach somebody to use a set of known compliant procedures than starting over from scratch or modifying their own. If they need to have their modified, if they have special needs, certainly, we're going to work with them. But, we're looking for the way that we can most easily get them to be able to operate in a manner that is first secure and then secondarily compliant.
So, obviously all of you have taken the CMMC program very seriously in terms of layering it on top of your services that you provide your customers. Many were providing it, as Jeremy mentioned before, have been providing it for DFARS and NIST for years, and that certainly is a leg up. Many of our customers are working with MSPs today, that at this time haven't made that type of commitment to this space. If they're talking to their existing MSP about working with them as they move toward their CMMC objective, what kinds of questions should they be asking their current MSP in terms of making a decision whether they can support them in these services that are required, to become compliant or not? Todd, do you want to kick us off on that?
I would say a couple of things come to mind. Number one is a lot of times when we start working with an organization, the organization has more or less, we work a lot with smaller manufacturers and other groups, that this is an IT issue, that IT needs to be running this and getting it done. And the truth is, you can't get through some of the controls and really build a risk managed environment and a culture that CMMC really wants you to have without it being an organizational issue. And so sometimes being able to, not just have a technical set of checkboxes, but also have an understanding of how organizations work. And maybe sometimes you're doing a little culture building to stitch that together and bring it together. The other thing that I think is important is, sometimes there are degrees in which you implement stuff. One of the things that I do a lot of is kind of parsing what, good, better, and best looks like. Oftentimes, organizations will understand the very best way to do something. It's top the line, but it's not necessarily what you need to get CMMC certified. And so I am not in any way advocating that you take shortcuts. But what I am advocating is that if you have a business imperative to get a CMMC certification so that you can, do business, maybe the idea of having that happen in March or June or sometime and spend the next year building out, because that's really what it's meant to be. This is a journey. You can't go from nothing to a fully mature organization. It really does have that roadmap and time built in. And sometimes organizations don't parse that and they feel overwhelmed trying to get to that best spot rather than, start with something small, understand that it's adequate enough to move forward. And so having that, I guess, nuance, understanding with culture and some of these other things, I think really helps an organization get past some of their challenges.
Yeah. Pete, what would you say in this regard? If you're working with someone, smaller organization, they already have an IT service provider, managed service provider helping them with these things, they're wondering if they can just continue to work with them or not. What sort of process would you take with them to ensure they're taking the right path?
Sure. And I do a lot of work as an RPO on the consulting side. So in Massachusetts, we do a lot of grant fund work. So we work closely with the Mass MEP. That allows an organization to have a gap assessment performed with grant funding. So it's an opportunity for an organization to work with us with some experience as an RPO and have worked with all these other organizations during assessment. So we understand what that CMMC model is, but we're in no way trying to sell our IT services during that process. So I'd say if you have that, go talk to your MEP, figure out, is that available to me? Because it's kind of a way to free to go assess an organization, because we come in, work with that IT provider. You're going to get a great idea if that IT provider is prepared to work through towards CMMC compliance and help you on that journey through that process, through that gap assessment. They have to be part of that. It isn't an IT only issue, as Todd said, but there's so much of it that's IT focused that through those conversations, it becomes clear those that get it, and they might not have ever seen CMMC in the past. Now they've been introduced to it, and what they're working on aligns with what they're going to need to meet compliance.
Sure. Yep. No, thanks a lot, guys. All right. One quick question. We're running out of time, but I got a question I know I wanted to ask out there. I'll throw this one to Jeremy. Many of our customers are coming to us asking about assessment, call it pre-assessment. Before they go to a C3PAO, they want to make sure they have everything buttoned down. They feel good about where they are in the process. They feel good about their documentation, but they certainly don't have the expertise to know that they've got this in a position where they've got a very good chance of getting a 110 out of 110, which is the score that people want to leave with. So tell me about, for instance, at MAD, how you guys approach that particular piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, I think we approach it a couple different ways, right? The first and foremost is if somebody is ready to do that and they want to get that pre-assessment, they're talking the right language, right? So we have what we call like enablement services, in that we create a mock assessment for them and we go through that, right? Prevail's a great instance of this matter, right? So we know that Prevail covers a majority of the controls, but I think there's like 11 or 15 that are not controlled there because it's not in the environment. So we know exactly what it is, and the way you guys provide your stuff, a customer like that, it's fairly simple to say, okay, these are the differences, and here's your mock assessment, and test those things. So they don't need like a full-fledged gap assessment of every 320 sub pieces of the controls and all that other stuff, right? We can get them there very quickly, feel the confidence level that they want to go into that assessment with other things. However, then there's other customers that have fully implemented their own enclave, figured out their own scoping, figured out how they're going to do survey. They'd have to do like a full-blown gap assessment, right? And do a complete mock gap assessment for that. Typically, how we kind of vet that, and you can kind of vet service providers with this too, is just ask them scoping questions. If they haven't gotten scoping down, which is the major driving factor for everything in CMMC, right? How well you can do it and how much it's going to cost, right? That kind of thing. Ask them the scoping questions. Ask them if they've had the 171A, if they know what that is, right? But that's what we would do for the customers that are ready to go for an assessment, is like either enablement service and kind of get them where they are, mock assessment, or a full-blown gap assessment to just go through the controls and stuff. And it'll save them a lot of time. And then usually if we do that, we review their SSPs, right? Really quickly, you look at SSP and be like, yeah, that's not going to pass, or that's going to pass, right? Because the implementation statements and stuff. So hopefully that answers your question for you, Vince.
Very good. Yeah. And I think that all the panelists here, probably the organizations, will provide the support for these type of services for Prevail customers, for folks out there that aren't using Prevail that need assistance. So I appreciate that. Unfortunately, we're out of time, so I'm going to wrap it up. Really appreciate the expert insights from you guys. Really appreciate your partnership with Prevail and the services that you're providing the CMMC ecosystem. This is really valuable. Thanks for your time today and your continued support. And we'll let folks move on with their afternoon.